Hey everybody, it is Deb from Deb's Corner Canada. Don't mind the noise in here today. I have the AC on and it's a little bit warm again. I wanted to talk today about antisocial personality disorder, or ASPD. It is actually a reference to the, I guess, higher echelons of the narcissistic scale, okay? And it's really discussing or referring to sociopathy or psychopathy. So today I wanted to go into the sociopathy end of this. And as the saying goes, a sociopath is always a narcissist, but not all narcissists are sociopaths. I know. And just when we all are kind of like recovering, we're all recovering from the sticker shock, right? Of even knowing that they're among us, right? That just narcissists are among us, right? Like we are already freaked out by that. And unfortunately, the horror saga, it does become much worse. It becomes much, much worse. There's worse, in other words, okay? And this, unfortunately, is where we now, have to step up to the more dangerous, what I call narcissistic breeds. And how can you kind of start learning, right? How can you learn to recognize when one of them is amongst us or when one of them is around you? How are you going to recognize that? Are there various levels? Or they are just like serial predators and they're kind of fairly obvious? Like, what are the details behind that? So let's dive in. A sociopath is also commonly referred to as a malignant narcissist. And as with all kind of, personality disorders here, this rare breed tends to be on the very, very far right of that sociopathic. Like they have their own spectrum, but they'll tend to kind of go over the middle to the right? And of course, with varying degrees, right? They could just be on the lower end and maybe never do anything. You never know, right? And of course, with those varying degrees and intensity, that's going to be different too, right? But most unfortunately are violent human beings. And, they're either, unfortunately, undiagnosed. Most of them are undiagnosed, right? And they're undiagnosed because a narcissist doesn't think they have a problem, right? And they're narcissistic, so they don't feel they have a problem. There's no problem here. It's your problem. It's not my problem. They're not going to show up, okay? So they're undiagnosed, or a lot of them are incarcerated for probably violence of some sort. And some, there's a fair amount of them in like mental health facilities, right? Because there's a lot of co-occurring and overlapping things that could be going on too. So they could be in mental health facilities. And the remainder, lucky us, are here among us. And we have to kind of check that out. So these are the ones who strongly believe here that the end justifies the means, right? Let's begin with the sociopath. So their kind of core defining features being little to no moral compass, trouble even acknowledging authority, even listening to them whatsoever. All right, little to no remorse, little to no. They can, very little, and they really got to focus, but they can. All right, so they have high anxiety, sky high anxiety. And that links really to their condition having a lot of really severe substance abuse, very severe, like really freaky drugs kind of stuff, okay? And also typically they will have child conduct disorders before the age of 15. And when I say that, it's got to be long-term and it has to be pervasive and it has to be pretty brutal. So they're basically, they're going at it. They're just, there's no good conduct going on at all. And so that will overlap too, especially in a female sociopath with eating disorders. It'll overlap with that often. So a sociopath, unfortunately, does know right from wrong. Of course they know. They know right from wrong, but they have little to no empathy, right? And they feel it's their right to kind of thumb society's rules. Like, it's not for me, it's for everybody else. The rules are for everybody else but me, right? That narcissism is going to come out again, right? Mind you, they've got it to crazy levels, and so they'll thumb their nose against the rules and they'll have zero issues with any kind of rule breaking, cutting in, whatever they can do, right? So say that, for instance, they have a suspended license, right? Like they will actually not consider others. They will have zero concept of this is illegal, I might hurt somebody, and with a suspended license, gee, my insurance might not kick in, I might not be able to help it. That thought process does not even register to them once. And so they're just gonna, they're just worried about what they want to do. And a lot of them will drive with either no license or a suspended license. I've seen that a lot. So there'll be zero thought to others' road safe, like others on the road, including themselves, actually. So due to kind of a low or no moral compass, it's not there. It spins. One day it's this, one day it's that, one day they might do this. Honestly, it changes every 24 hours. It just spins. And so, they will engage in very extremely high risk and harmful behaviors, like sexually, drug-wise, really, really high risk stuff, okay? So, and the female here, I just want to make a point. See, she will usually actually excel at examining other people's social cues, right? So she'll know if you kind of grimace or maybe something hurts, or she'll pay attention to the really little tiny things that probably nobody else in that room is going to notice, okay? And it's really all in an effort to exploit any perceived vulnerabilities or any kind of like chinks in the armor, right? They're just trying to figure out where those are for later to store those away, right? Just like a narcissist, because that's what they are as well. So they got a double whammy, right? And typically, they hunt through really extreme sexual promiscuity. These are the ones you're going to find on the hookup apps, and you're going to find that I'll pick you up at the grocery store and it's not a problem, and they got a boyfriend in every town and they're fine with that, like these people, okay? And so, really they're just kind of picking on those vulnerabilities of other people, right? And they're also doing that through promiscuity, right? And typically sociopaths will exhibit really major conflicts when they're younger, okay? With like coaches, with law enforcement, with like principals and teachers. And when I say conflict, I mean like probably fist fights, probably throwing things around. Some kind of violence will be involved, and it will be very pervasive, right? It's going to keep going. It's going to be a kind of a pervasive thing. It's always going to be happening, and probably it's going to be escalating, to be honest with you. Okay, so they react really can't say it enough, extremely impulsively. So if they see, say, a Corvette on the side of the road, I like that Corvette. The rest of us would think, gee, one day we're going to earn some money for the Corvette. They're going to think, I want that Corvette, and I'm going to go open the door and I'm going to take that Corvette. Nothing else will occur to them. That there might be somebody watching them, that they might get caught. That is now theirs. So they're going to go take it, and it's okay. They'll be actually a little bit confused as to why you would even charge them. They'll be a little bit like confused because they actually really think that that's theirs, and they have the right to do whatever they want. They really think this. All right, so they'll act extremely impulsively, like the Corvette example there, right? They'll even refuse a court summons. The rest of us that would get a court summons would probably be freaking out until it was over, whatever it may be, right? These people will rip it up and throw it out. They don't care. Judges don't have a right to speak over them. Police don't have a right to tell them what to do. Nobody can tell them when and where they're going. It's not going to happen. That is their belief. It is their really true belief, unfortunately. All right, so they will fail to respond properly to others. Like, keep in mind though, autistic folks also may exhibit this young, right? They may, instead, like say somebody's hollering and things are going wrong, say an autistic person might get like really uncomfortable and kind of have a nervous laugh. That'll happen as well. So just be careful here with this one. And, say for, example, they, a sociopath would hear bad news. Sometimes they'll laugh. They'll actually just laugh, and then they'll try to cover it up because it's not what people do. They'll realize that people expect that of them, but in their heart and soul they don't get it. It's just it's floating in the air. They don't understand, right? And a sociopath, when they're caught out, which is rare because they are extremely sneaky and hide under the radar, but when they're finally caught out, they will show a very serious coldness, a very like it's cold. And they're going to show that coldness, that lack of remorse, and they're really only affected by getting caught. They're not affected by the deed they've done. They're not affected by somebody else that might be affected by the deed they've done. Not even a cloud in the sky. They couldn't care less, right? And they're going to be worried about them getting caught, and they're going to be worried about their own butt. All they're worried about, nothing else, okay? Any consequences, they don't like that either. So not the deed itself, right? They just can't. And a sociopath will typically present to counseling out of consequences only. Typically, they will present say if a spouse is finally fed up and they're giving them an ultimatum and they need to get some help for whatever it is, and they tell them they got to go, or really it's usually probably, honestly, court ordered, a court ordered counseling session or group sessions, probably, and probably for addiction, to be honest. So an example here might be a sociopathic boss, right? So say you've got a sociopathic boss, and God bless you if you do. So, whose employee is late, right? So say their employee is late due to their parent passing away. So even if the parent passed away the night before or that morning, okay? So number one, a sociopathic boss will still require you to come in. They're going to ask you, are you going to miss any work? Oh, so what, they're going to be focused on nothing to do with you, okay? What you can do for them and what you're not doing for them is where that focus is going to target, okay? And at best, they might repeat your issue back to you, right? So they might, but they're going to really disregard any of the emotional parts of what you're doing. So you could be standing there bawling your face off that someone in your family has transitioned. They've passed on finally, they've gone to source, they're out. And this person's horrified and crying, and this person will just go, oh, so your parent died, so are you going to cremate them or bury them? Oh, well, okay, well, we'll see you at lunch. And they'll actually, off they go. Like Grinch, right? Think Grinch. And really, they're going to just ask really stupid questions, odd questions, cold questions you're like, what's that about? Like, who's going to ask you that? Like, you think they'd say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, maybe you should go home. Like, they're not going to say that to you. And they want you to get the work done. They don't care about anything else, right? So, and they're going to have little to no empathy, right? They just want the facts. They want the facts. They want to know what you're going to do for them, and that's it. They couldn't care less about anything else. So honestly, as well, their distress tolerance is very poor at best. So they can't really handle a lot of distress, right? It's going to show. So this is something you can look for, right? And it's very, very poor at best. And in addition to really compulsive lies, they are compulsive liars. There is not a word that comes out of their mouth that is not made up or a lie. Like or they'll change a little bit around, like they'll change a very important part of the story that you kind of need to know, and they'll tell you the rest. Lies of omission, they're really good at those too. All right, so in addition to those compulsive kind of lying that's going on, even when it's not needed, so even when they don't have to lie, they're gonna lie to you. For fun, for games, for kicks, right? You're there to amuse them. And really, they also will tend to have volatile and really abusive relationships earlier on in life, okay? Like teens, 20s, maybe even the 30s, and they'll probably escalate, right? A lot of, maybe even like smacking or pushing or, physical things. You're gonna get a lot of physical things, but they'll try to stay under the radar, okay? They're gonna try to stay under the radar as long as they can. So they can focus on success. They actually can, a sociopath, focus on success, right? But only for very, very short periods of time, okay? Psychopaths can have a whole career. So there's a big difference here too. So a sociopath can only focus on success for a very, very, very short period of time, okay? Usually riding out someone's coattails as well. So they actually will have zero loyalty to anybody, to their children, to their parents, to anybody. They just don't have it, right? And they can be really provoked by even a really slight criticism, even really slight, like, oh no, you have a little piece of fluff on you. Woo! Boo, that's done. You're now a target. Anybody else will be, oh, great, thanks. I saw that all day. It was bugging me. No, that's not how that's going to go. They're going to file that away, and now you're going to be a target later down the road, and it might even happen then. Like, they might freak out right there. And they're not going to tell you why. They're just going to start treating you like crap and freaking out, and you're not going to have a clue why. So this tends to really culminate in also little to no relationship quality or even longevity, right? And that's due to, unfortunately, they have numerous infidelities, right? Like, they're very, very, very extremely promiscuous. Extremely. And, so in doing that, it's not helping their relationships, right? Because of that infidelity, and it's not going to give them any kind of longevity, right? When people catch on and these things go on, right? And they'll have a lot of theft issues. Whew! They like to steal. Actually, they love to steal. I'm going to correct that. So as they collect many enemies, right? Like, they're going to be collecting a lot of enemies. That's what, they're not really looking behind them, but other people are looking at them, and they don't realize this, right? So they don't know that in 20 years they've made 500 enemies. They don't care until the enemies, start to affect them. And that's why they're so paranoid. They've collected all these enemies, and now they're wondering when these enemies are going to strike, right? Like, when's the enemy strike, and kind of a deal, right? And they'll, you know, so as they collect these enemies over time, this eventually will cause a really almost manic, super duper paranoia. And, you know, it's a paranoid state, and it will keep them on edge, right? It keeps them on edge often, so they're really easy to that rage that they like to dish out, right? So typically, honestly, here, males are the most affected population with this, right? And they estimate between, I guess, it's 1 in 5%, somewhere in there, that this group exists, right? I'm including psychopaths because they don't go for treatment either. So typically males are the most affected population, but there are female sociopaths. Where you're going to find them? Online. Almost always you're going to find them online. I'm going to tell you 95% of the time you're going to find them on hookup apps and stuff online. Caution, caution, caution. So their failure to kind of socially conform will also cause them to become chameleons. So they're not going to socially conform, but they're going to switch for every group. So if this group, you know, cusses and goes on, they're gonna conform to, like, they're gonna blend in with that group. If this group is church going, they're gonna blend in with this group. If this group likes to climb trees, they're gonna go over to this, like, whatever that group is doing at that moment, they will just blend in. They'll be a chameleon with whatever that group is. Even if they hate it, they'll still do it and look like they're fine with it. I don't get it. All right, so, and that's really in order to blend in. They just want to blend in. They don't really want any attention on them, right? They don't really want any attention. Sociopaths will tend actually also to be created. They say there might be a genetic component, but that's more of a psychopath, which I'm going to cover next week. But this one really is more created. It's created by environment and trauma. Typically, this is where a sociopath is going to this is where it splits the difference between the psychopath and a sociopath. Okay, so sociopath is pretty much usually created. A lot of the stuff overlaps too, keep that in mind. So a sociopath will tend to be created, whereas a psychopath will tend to be a mixture of genetics and environment, but they're mostly going to be environment and trauma. So environmentally speaking, like what's going on in their environment. So it's usually influenced by violence in the households, and they specifically state alcohol abuse. Alcohol violence, alcohol abuse in the house can actually, you know, result in a sociopath. That's a little scary, isn't it? And it's coupled with extremely toxic or neglectful caregivers. So typically they're going to have a really, really horribly abusive, toxic caregiver, controlling caregiver, or no attention at all. Nobody will ask them anything. Nobody will feed them. Nobody cares how they feel. That kind of thing, right? Just do what you're told, and that's the end of the story, right? And so sociopath, but make no mistake about this at all, right? Like, sociopaths can care. I think that's the hard part here. They can care. And, you know, and they just choose not to. They choose not to. They can, but they choose not to. I don't know how anybody can choose not to care, but apparently they can do this. I don't know how. And so really, you know, they don't or won't seem to acknowledge how much it's actually impeding their own lives. They'll never realize that it's not working for them, right? All of this crap going on around them, consistently going on around them, their whole life, chaos all around them. They will never, ever look inside. They'll never like, oh, gee, maybe I need to do some things. Maybe I need to grow a little. Maybe I need to, I don't know, take some courses, do whatever, right? Like, they're not going to look into any kind of like self-help or anything like that. That's not going to happen here. So sociopaths can care. I think that's the worst part here. They can care, but they simply actually choose not to, and they don't or won't seem to acknowledge how much it's really impeding them. And so that cycle is going to keep continuing, right? That cycle is just going to keep that momentum, keep continuing for them, and they're just going to be stuck on this like rabbit, like this wheel consistently going around, and they don't realize it. I think that's the worst thing. So they typically will search for destructive outlets, very, very destructive, okay? And they will genuinely, is really unfortunately here, they can feel one emotion, only one. They can feel no other emotions. This one freaked me out a little bit. So they can only feel rage. I know. So they don't feel love, they don't feel compassion, they don't feel empathy, they don't feel warmness towards others. They only feel rage. Only emotion they have. They have no other emotion. Can you imagine living like that? That'd be awful. So they actually will feed off others' negative energy. It's like a bouquet of flowers to them. Like, if there's negative stuff going on, you'll see them all animated and they're all involved and they're smirking and they're involved and they're gossiping and ooh, it's bad, okay? And they'll feed off others' negative energy, right? If things are going wrong from other people, you can almost feel from them that they're enjoying it. They're like, haha, they're getting yours. That's how they think a lot. They don't think, oh, good for you. No, that's not in there. They're not thinking that. So in order to release that pressure valve, right? So they got to have that rage. And it's going to build, and it's going to build, right? It builds in anybody else. They have that one emotion, but eventually they're going to need that pressure valve, right? They need that pressure valve, and that is you, unfortunately. And so typically through being really nasty, vindictive, just outright cruel, just usually cruel, really cruel stuff they'll do, okay? And it'll be through like, it's going to elicit a target's reactive abuse response. So they're looking again, like they're narcissists as well, right? So they're looking for that reactive abuse. Oh, somebody's flipping out. Oh, look, I'm all calm. I don't know what their problem is, right? They're very, very big on that game. Very, very big. And so really they're looking for that reactive abuse. And that's also that they can just rage at you. Just an excuse to rage. Okay, so I've covered the sociopath, and next week we are going to delve into the psychopath. Stay tuned. Bye for now.